How are you? So last time we started a Come Alive session, and this time we're really gonna do a real Come Alive session, another Come Alive session. And that is going to cover what the current events are. I think above all things, church should not, or Christians should not disengage from culture, because how else are you supposed to transform culture if you're not relevant or even equipped to handle or even have conversations with what is happening in culture? So we saw the death of George Floyd, and that was very, very, very unfortunate. But what has happened is that we have realized that there's a space of silence where black people are uncomfortable starting uncomfortable conversations. They don't want to make people mad. And then at the end of the day, and it is information that will make people mad, but it is also information that will create awareness and educate people, right? And on the other hand, somehow white people have been told, oh, in order to not be racist, you have to be colorblind. And therefore, somebody somehow told them you can't say black. I can say black, but white people feel uncomfortable even saying black. And then they even feel more uncomfortable having a conversation about racism or experiences that black people have gone through. Secondly, if you get it wrong, if you get it wrong, and then you get dragged on social media for even the wrong phrase, and you're told you're pandering or something of the sort. And so you feel like if having this conversation is tantamount to walking through a minefield, why not stay away from it altogether? And that is what is creating this space, this gap or chasm of silence. And where there is silence, where reasonable people are silent, that's where unreasonable people take over. And this is where you find all these far-right people and racists and blah, blah, blah become very emboldened, because the people who actually are reasonable would not say anything. There's a silence. So anyway, so what we're going to do is handle truthful. How do we have uncomfortable, imperfect conversations with other people? And this is in the perspective of Christians. So how do we do that? And for us to do that very effectively, we have to look at scripture. And Jesus in John 4 was talking to the Samaritan woman. And in short, the Samaritan woman was promiscuous, right? One. And secondly, she was a Samaritan. And in those days, Jews were not associating with Samaritans. In fact, I think they were considered less holy or something of the sort. So in John 4, we see that Jesus says, ask the woman to give him a drink. And the Samaritan woman says, how come you, a Jew, are asking me, a Samaritan woman, for a drink? So there were different social and cultural barriers here. First, there was a religious one where they were thought to be more sinful, and so therefore don't talk to them. Secondly, the woman is a promiscuous person, and Jesus is a rabbi, a teacher, a holy person. So it's like a sinner saint kind of thing. And so you see that, and Jesus answered, if you knew the generosity of God and who I am, you would be asking me for a drink, and I would give you fresh living water. Okay, so what happened is that Jesus went on to explain to the woman that I would give you living water, and what would happen is that a spraying of living water would start in you, and then you would bubble that out. So in short, it's like when you get Jesus and you get the love of God, it's practically impossible for you not to speak about God. So once you've met Jesus, once you've met God, it's practically impossible for you not to share the good news with other people. And literally that's what she did. So she said, oh, there's one who's called the Messiah that we're expecting, and he is going to tell us all things. And Jesus, for the first time, or at least the first time I have seen, he tells somebody directly, I am the Messiah. And I was like, Who would have thunk? The first person, or at least the first person I know of that he told directly, I am the Messiah, was a woman. And here's another rub, right? So she heard this and she was like, after being told that that is true, the husband that you have is not yours. And you have actually 5 husbands, and the one that you're living with right now is not your husband. And so she deduced and she said, oh, you're a prophet. And then they later on continued talking, and Jesus confirms to her that he is the Messiah. And when she learns this, she goes back to the Samaritan village and she starts sharing the good news with other people. And she says, come and see one who has told me everything. And they knew that was the sign for the Messiah. So they came out and they saw Jesus, and Jesus stayed 2 days in the Samaritan village, and a lot more people received the good news then. So 1 point for women, that is evangelism. She was the first woman evangelist. Yay! So anybody who tells you you're not qualified as a woman to share the gospel and the good news, if Jesus shared the gospel with a woman and she went and spread the gospel, that's evangelism. He knew exactly what she was going to do. He told her, if I give you a drink, it will make you a spring of living water. Anyways, so basically what we are looking at is how can we have a truthful and uncomfortable conversation. One is that Jesus handled this with so much grace. First, he told her the truth. He told her, go bring your husband. And she said, I do not have any husband. And Jesus said, that is the truth. In fact, you have 5 and the one you're living with is not yours. That was the truth. And then he said, but if you knew who I was, you'd ask me for living water. So he goes on to preach to her, which is grace, because in the first place, they were not even supposed to talk to each other. And Jesus transcended those barriers just so he could give her good news. She who did not qualify, qualified. And that is grace. And lastly, there was action. The action was she went and shared the information with other people so that they could get the living water as well, so that they could get the good news. That's why I was talking about evangelism. And if you read further down, when the disciples come back and they wonder why Jesus is talking to this kind of woman, then Jesus says, look, you will harvest in a field that you did not plant. And so basically what he was talking about, that evangelism is harvesting where you did not plant. And even if, because you look for the ripe apples, if we could say, and then those are the ones that are ready to fall. And so Jesus told the disciples, you're going to harvest in a field that you did not plant, but the sower and the harvester are going to be very happy because this is fruit, right? So the truth of that, the truth was, yeah, you're a promiscuous woman. And Jesus told her that with a lot of grace. And then he told her, even though you be disqualified, here is the grace that you qualify to the Son of God, you qualify and you get the good news. You qualify to be saved. And she got grace in that season. And then what she did was went and shared the good news. This is the template for having uncomfortable conversations. Truthful, uncomfortable conversation. So you start with the truth, and then you combine it with grace, and then you give people some actions to go do. Right? So if I find that somebody once told me, there was a party we were at, and what happened is that the host said, oh, it's a stretch of staff policy. So in short, she was saying, this is self-service. So if you don't serve yourself, you're going to starve, right? So one of the white people who was next to me said, oh, what does that mean? And then he did a double take and said, oh, you wouldn't know. And I asked him, is it because I'm black, or is it because English is not my first language. And he looked at it, and then, because what I was doing was challenging his thought process. His thought process was racist. He thought just because I don't speak English, I wouldn't know exactly what that phrase meant. It's not a hard phrase. So anyways, at the end of the day, I didn't have to tell him he was being racist. He came to that conclusion himself. That was truth. And the grace is, I don't have to point it out to you. I'm giving you a chance to learn it for yourself. And then some actions require that you never do that. Sin no more. Do not do the same thing again. So like the Samaritans, they sinned no more because they had good news. They had good news. So the thing is, the truth shall set you free. Truth that does not set you free does not complete the cycle. If my truth is meant to hurt you and sting you, that's not a good intention. But the good truth shall set you free. And so once you point that out, and you change your your thoughts, and you change your mindset, then you do that no more or no longer because you know better. So yeah, Jesus gave us a template to do hard and uncomfortable conversations. And so you're welcome to use the same template to have the same conversations. And in an attempt to make people aware, educate people about racism, systemic racism, covert racism, or whatever sort of discrimination that you find out there. And this is where I want to point out something. This is where there's I have a big problem with Christians who look at gay people as sin. You see, when you call somebody sin, you have dehumanized them. And if I can dehumanize you, then I can do anything to you. You see, black people were referred to as chattel, which is furniture. And because they have been dehumanized, they were sold. They are still killed brutally to this day. And during Hitler's time, the Jews were called cockroaches. They dehumanized human beings. This is our history. Learn from history. People are valuable because they are simply human beings. Treat everyone with respect based on the fact that they're simply human. Their character may not be nice. They may not be the best of people. But if you don't have to be near them, don't be near them. But do not disrespect people. Because it starts with one, and then it goes to another, and then it goes to another. And depending on how many people let you get away with disrespect, you think that is a way of life, and that's a lifestyle that you can get away with. So, we come full circle. Have uncomfortable and imperfect conversations. They are going to be uncomfortable. They're going to be imperfect because people are going to offend you without knowing they're offending you.